our emotions are data. And what we should do is we should tune into our emotions. We should pay attention to how we're feeling and not allow ourselves to judge our emotions. We have a tendency to judge emotions, especially emotions that make us feel uncomfortable.
Mucha has been to Nigeria, and Mucha has been almost in almost all the Africa Emotional Intelligence Conference, even the physical ones. So thank you, Mucha, for being a huge partner of Pulse Factory. And I have been to Kenya too to speak at the EQ for African Conference, which is organized by Mucha and her PTS Africa, the organization managing it. So we are all trying to move Africa forward with emotional intelligence, right? So Mucha is the CEO of PTS Africa, and PTS Africa is a partner company. We call them preferred partner to 6 Second Emotional Intelligence Network in the US. And she's doing fantastic work with emotional intelligence in Kenya, and she just moved to South Africa, where she would still continue to do what she's doing. If you've been at the Africa Emotional Intelligence Conference, you would have met Mucha. Mucha just finished, and she should deep in this. She just finished a research work on women and emotional intelligence in that part of Africa, which we're going to be bringing to Nigeria too, so that we're able to use all of these emotional intelligence resources to help, to help people. Please, everyone, help me welcome, like we would say, within Nigeria, with a Nigerian welcome. Please help me welcome Mucha Mlingo on board. And she'll be speaking with us, just like Jimmy, and sharing stories both for migrants and non-migrants and how emotional intelligence can help. And then we will then take all your questions together, and it would have been the evening and the morning, and it would have been day one. So welcome, Mucha, all of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Enahoro. It's such an honor to be back here again, and apologies. I joined in the middle of finishing off my lunch. It was funny, actually. I logged in and I was in the kind of, what do you call it, in the waiting room. And I thought to myself, man, I've not had a chance to eat. While I'm in the waiting room, let me quickly grab my lunch. So I can quickly eat. It looks like maybe the session hasn't started. And you caught me as I was just swallowing. So my apologies for that. Really happy to be here again. It has been a pleasure to collaborate with you, Enahoro, in these conferences that we have. As you mentioned, I attended a conference. It was actually my first time in Nigeria for that conference, and you attended the conference that we hosted in Kenya in 2019. So great to be back on this platform and to talk about something that we often don't talk about that's really, really important, and to speak about it from my own experience. I always tell people when I'm invited to speak in a forum that I don't see myself as an emotional intelligence expert. I see myself as someone who's learning about emotional intelligence and sharing what it has done for me. And hopefully in my sharing about my experience, it can help those who are listening. So I'm looking forward to being here and to this conversation that we are going to have. So maybe just to give a bit of a backstory, Enahoro, I hope that's okay, to give a bit of a backstory. And I suspect this is why Enahoro invited me to speak. So I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I left Zimbabwe in many years, 1993, after I completed my O-levels. So Zimbabwe uses the British system of O-level and A-level, so that's Form 4. My parents met in the UK as students at university and got married, had my sister and I, and then moved back to Zimbabwe when Zimbabwe gained independence. So when I finished my O-levels, my mom decided that it would be good for me to move to the UK to further my education. And I always tell the story of how I left Zimbabwe as a 15-year-old on my own and moved to this country where I had a passport from, but didn't know anything about it. We'd never been back to the UK since we left. when I was a child at about 4 years old. And it was a very big culture shock. Knowing what I know now, I understand the challenges I faced as I acclimatized to living in the UK. On my own, trying to find my feet. So I went to school, did my A-levels, and then I did my university, my undergrad. I did my postgrad in the UK, and I worked in the UK. And I think that it's an experience that has shaped me to date. I think it has shaped me, having that experience of being a migrant at a very young age. And at the time, dealing with all the different nuances of being an African in London, interacting with individuals who perhaps judged you for the color of your skin, or judged you for the accent that you had, because those nuances weren't just from people of a different color, but even those of the same color, but from a different part of the continent. And so my experience is, really, like I said, shaped who I am today. And yeah, I think that knowing what I know now about emotional intelligence, I realized how ill-equipped I was when I moved, how ill-equipped I was. And yeah, based on my experience, I am excited to just share some reflections around how emotional intelligence can help us, right, to be able to navigate those moves. The reality about the world we live in is it's a global village, and we no longer limit ourselves to opportunities that are within our locale or even within our region. We now recognize that opportunities are global, and you find Africans across the globe. And, I'm from Zimbabwe, like I said, and because of some of the challenges we face, you find Zimbabweans everywhere. Every time I travel, I've never gone to a country I've not found a Zimbabwean. And so we're all over the world. And so when we talk about this idea of the emotionally balanced immigrant, and thinking through how to settle in a new country and navigate successfully emotionally, navigating the culture shock, the pleasant and unpleasant surprises, the disappointments, and the homesickness, I think is critical. Enahoro, as I always say, emotions are data. And I think for me, one of the critical lessons that reflecting back that I didn't know then, that I know now, is rather than suppressing our emotions, rather than ignoring our emotions, it's really important that we get into the habit of making friends with our emotions, recognizing that our emotions are data, our emotions are insight, our emotions are useful for us to be able to navigate forward. And so I think for me, there are, 3 insights that I would like to share with you all. And Enahoro, I want to make sure you can still hear me. Fantastic. I see you nodding your head. That's great.
Clearly. And before you continue, 15 years old, you left Zimbabwe and then to UK and then to Kenya and then to South Africa. I know you just came back from UK when you went, with regards to your mom passing. Thinking about all of that. Whoa. That's some journey, Mucha.
It has been. It has been. And, they are ups and downs to being a migrant, to living in a foreign land, and I think that it's important that we look at all sides. So, just to echo what you've said. So as I mentioned, I told the story of how I moved when I was 15.
I'm tempted to ask, where are you from? So who are you? You're an African,
right? So and
Zimbabwe is...
yeah, I am an African. I like the way you said that, right? So I lived in the UK for very many years. Like I said, did my A-levels, undergrad, postgrad. I worked, and then I got married. My husband's from Zimbabwe, and he then got work in Kenya. So we moved to Nairobi. And that was another culture shock. That was another change, right? I don't think you're ever really prepared for what moving is like. When we moved to Nairobi, I was expecting our first child. We lived in Nairobi for 15 years. And we've recently moved again. Now we're based in Cape Town. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. An interesting journey. It's been an interesting journey. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. So, when I reflect back on my journey, Enahoro gave me carte blanche to share, right? In terms of my my sharing. So when I look back on my journey, I think there's three things that I would like to share. 3 lessons, 3 insights, I guess, that I have gained from my experience as a migrant. I think the first and most important thing that I learned is that it's important to be kind to yourself. It's important to understand that adjusting takes time, and that's okay. It's okay to feel as though you're not fitting in, to feel homesick, to feel as though you second guess the decision that you made to move, and you feel like, oh my goodness, have I made the right decision? I think that we have unrealistic expectations of ourselves. Do you know, Enahoro, that even for those of us who relocate back home, that it's a major adjustment, right? There are many Africans who are in the diaspora who make the decision to move back home. And they don't factor in the idea that it's a major step. Because it's home, you expect that you will just arrive and you will just, fit in. But it's an adjustment. Maybe you've been abroad for 15 years and you've come back home. Home is no longer the way you left it. So I think it's really important that we give ourselves that space, that we give ourselves that room, that we recognize that migrating is a transitional process and it doesn't happen overnight. And we should be kind to ourselves in that period of transition before you begin to feel as though your new home is home. It's okay. And as I said before, our emotions are data. And what we should do is we should tune into our emotions. We should pay attention to how we're feeling and not allow ourselves to judge our emotions. We have a tendency to judge emotions, especially emotions that make us feel uncomfortable. You're feeling lonely. It's normal. It's okay. Tune in to that emotion. Ask yourself, what insight can I gain from it? Do I need to reconnect with those I've left behind? Is there something I need to change in my life right now so that I can connect with those who are here? So I think the first thing that I would like to share as you transition is be kind to yourself. Lower those expectations. Recognize that this migration, moving from one place to another, takes a lot out of us. And because you've made that decision in your head, it doesn't necessarily mean that your heart will adjust as quickly as your head has. And so it's okay. Tune into what you're feeling and validate what you're feeling. Every emotion is valid. Every emotion has a message that it's giving you. And so don't judge it. Just validate it. Remind yourself that it's okay to feel the way that you do. So I think that's the first message that I would like to share. And Enahoro, I feel like you had something you wanted to dive in and say. So I like the fact that this is a conversation. So, go ahead.
I don't know why I'm feeling. Let me put it this way, and let me be vulnerable, Mucha, right? So I'm looking at you as a lady, and I'm looking at all the movements and giving birth to children and, being with a man. And I'm kind of wondering all that you would have had to manage as a person. That's what's going on within you right now. Just being empathetic and putting myself in your shoes as a lady, as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter first, and as a daughter, having to be born in the UK and taken to Zimbabwe and then have to go back and then have to come back and have to get married and then have to go to Kenya and then have to start giving birth to children. And I'm wondering, oh my God, but like you said, I'm just typing your quotes with your name. Your head might not move with your heart at the same speed.
Your heart
might not move
yes,
with your head at the same speed.
Yeah.
But allow them.
Yeah, allow it. Yeah. Allow your heart to come along. Allow your heart to come along on the journey.
So all the gesticulations you see me, having, I'm just really wondering, and must have been a lot of work for you. Well done.
Thank you. I believe that God equips you with the innate skills that you need to navigate the journey he sends you on. And he equipped me with the skill of adaptability. I think that's one of my strengths. I recognize that as I get older, it's harder. I suspect that this move that we've now made is probably going to be, take me a little longer to adjust now that I'm a little older. But yeah, I'm in the space of being okay with not being okay, being okay with feeling depressed about the fact that things have changed, the fact that you've left the life that you have known. It's okay. I think that we are too hard on ourselves. And so I think the first message I like to give anyone who's listening today who is in that season of transition, it's okay. Allow yourself to feel, recognize that your heart may not move at the same speed as your head. Your head knows this is where we need to be, whether it's for economical reasons, whether it's for health reasons, whether it's for on the basis of an opportunity that's great, whether it's because you've got to study, whatever reason, your head knows why you're there. But sometimes it takes your heart a little longer. But I can assure you that your heart catches up and eventually they are together. But in that season where there is a lag, allow yourself to feel that it's okay. It's not weakness to recognize the emotions you're feeling. And I really encourage that you make friends with those emotions, that you validate those emotions and not suppress them. Because in suppressing our emotions and ignoring our emotions, we actually do damage. We do a better job by taking them out. All right. I was in a forum recently and someone said something, I'm going to paraphrase it, but it was along the likes of, all right, hello, loneliness. Let's sit down here for a moment together. What do you want to tell me? I'm listening. And I thought that was a really powerful concept. Sit on the couch and ask yourself, all right, I'm listening. What is it you're telling me? Do I need to, and what can I do now that I know? Because suppressing your loneliness doesn't make it go away. As a matter of fact, it amplifies it. And when we suppress our emotions, the emotions that are uncomfortable, they end up seeping out in ways that we don't realize, in ways that can be more toxic. So yeah, make friends with what you're feeling, however uncomfortable. Make friends with what you're feeling. I think the second lesson that I'd like to share based on my experience on my journey is wherever you are, make your home your home. Wherever you are, make your home your home. Do whatever you can to find yourself a space where you feel comfortable, a space where it is your space. It's your environment. Surround yourself with the things that you love, the things that will help you as you navigate, as you move, as you transition. And, one of the things that's great, especially if you've migrated to the West, is that, it's not so expensive to create a comfortable space. I think too often as migrants, especially migrants migrating from the continent out, I think it's usually not the case for those coming back to the continent because we're coming back probably with a plan. For those who are migrating out, you are thinking to yourself, you want to minimize your expenses, you want to, move forward with your plans. And so you don't necessarily take time and invest in creating a comfortable space for yourself. You need a space where you can exhale. So find a way to create it. And it can be created in one room, in 2 rooms, in a 4-bedroom mansion, right? It's up to you. But find a way to create a space where when you come through the door, you feel like, so that whatever is going on out there, whatever battles you have to face out there, as you navigate being in a new environment, at least there's a safe space I can go to. And that safe space is the space where you are. Let me take a moment to speak to those who've moved for financial reasons and you've moved to a space where there isn't plenty. Maybe you're living with your cousins or you're living with an aunt and uncle and you have just a room there. Even in that room, you can create a safe space, a space where when you shut the door, you can exhale. It is critical for your well-being that you find a way to create a space that can, I don't know, give you a hug in a way. And I think that this is a lesson that I've learned. You know, my family laugh at me because as soon as I arrive in a place, I want to unpack. Do you know, even if I'm just going on holiday for a few days, I've learned the value of creating a space where I feel like, and so even when I travel for work and I'm just gone for a week, I unpack everything. I hang my clothes up in the cupboard. I take out my little mementos, the little things that make my space comfortable. And I put them out by the bedside. I'll put out, you know, the little things, whether it's a picture of my family or whatever it is that makes me feel comfortable, because I recognize that if I feel comfortable, that supports me and it helps my heart to catch up with my head. And so I think for me, that's the second thing that I've learned, that, you know, you need to make your space your own. Invest in your space. And like I said, it doesn't have to cost you a fortune. It really doesn't. And for those who are preparing to move, those who are preparing to migrate, you know, ask yourself, what are some of the things around you that give you great comfort? Make sure you carry them with you, whether it's pictures of your loved one, whether it's a favorite blanket that you have, or it's a book that reminds you of home. Maybe it's a pot in your kitchen, who knows, whatever it is. Carry with you some mementos because they will help the transition. Enahoro, you know, when I start talking about emotional intelligence, I can get carried away. So you have to be my timekeeper. You have to be my timekeeper. My third reflection is this. Emotions are data. Emotions are insight. I've already said this. Your emotions, however uncomfortable, are insight. They help you to understand what lies beneath the surface. In emotional intelligence speak, we like to use the analogy of an iceberg to reflect, you know, us as people. What lies above the surface are the things that are visible to you when you look at me, and visible to me when I reflect on myself. But if you think about an iceberg, there's a tip of an iceberg. The bulk of the iceberg lies beneath the surface. And so what lies beneath the surface is everything else that impacts how you show up, the things that are not visible to the naked eye. So your emotions, your thoughts, your values, your identity, you know, who you are at your core. And this iceberg, what lies beneath the surface, is shaped and influenced by your upbringing, by your DNA, by your experiences. And so when I talk about emotions being data, my first point about making friends with your emotion, I'm talking about going beneath the surface and digging down to really understand yourself and understand where you are on this journey of transition. But my third point is this: emotions are data, but they are not directives. Emotions are data, but they are not directives. Just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean you must act that way. Yes, I said, sit down and say, loneliness, fear, I'm here. Let's have a conversation. What do you want to tell me? But once you've unpacked it, you can make a decision about how to handle that emotion. Yes, it's hard, but you have the power within you to decide. You have the power within you to decide that you're not going to allow fear to hold you hostage, and that you are going to endeavor to do your part to acclimatize, regardless of how afraid you may feel. And so the last message I would give is that emotions are data, but they're not directives. We tune into our emotions so that we can understand what lies beneath the surface, not so that we can allow ourselves to be held captive by what lies beneath the surface. My experience has been a challenging one on a number of levels. And I share this just to help you understand where I'm coming from. I've told you about my journey of migration and the countries that I've lived in. When I moved to the UK at 15, my parents split up. And actually, that was one of the reasons why my mom felt, you know what, go back. Go back. There'll be more opportunities for you there. And maybe it's good for you to get away from what's going on. So my parents got divorced. And here's the thing, that is part of my experiences, but it cannot be the reason why I now, 40 plus, behave the way I behave. It shaped me, yes, but I can't allow it to be the reason why I behave the way I behave. When we talk about the power of self-awareness is critical, not just because knowing is important. It's critical because when you know, you can do something about it. So you're feeling lonely in that new town. What can you do about it? So you're feeling afraid in that new station. What can you do about it? You're feeling angry or frustrated. What can you do about it? Your emotions were designed to be an aid to help you understand what's lying beneath the surface and then to energize you to take action. And that's what's powerful about emotional intelligence. When we tune in, we're able to use those emotions as a strategic resource to move forward. And so as you make friends with your emotions, ask yourself, what options do I have? And Enahoro and I share a model for emotional intelligence that I think is useful for the migrant to be able to navigate the emotions that come with relocating. And it's a 6 seconds model of emotional intelligence. Know yourself, choose yourself, give yourself. Practicing emotional intelligence is really about becoming more aware, tuning in. It's about becoming more intentional, asking yourself, what options do I have? Now that I know what I know, how can I use this for my benefit? And then it's about becoming more clear about our purpose, the give yourself element, which is about building self-direction, reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing. So those are my reflections, Enahoro. I hope I didn't take too long, but yes, thank you very much for having me here to share my experience.